Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Business Casual. I'm Zach Ignitsky. It's super humid and I can't wait to get started tonight. We have 3 new amazing guests. I know I say that every week and it's still true. Okay, so we are going to bring everybody in right about now. But while we're waiting, how you guys doing? How are you feeling today? I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Audio.
Hello?
Hello, how are you? Okay.
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. I was just having trouble with the link. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Can everybody see and hear me okay?
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Zach.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay? See me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hey.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, there's Andreas, and we're waiting for his audio, and we're just waiting on Mary's video. How's everybody doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. My dog detests his cone, and my hair is showing the humidity, but
I didn't bother. I just kept it back up here. Hey, Mary.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I think I might have my little cat's sitting here, so hopefully he stays quiet through the whole little thing. We're all dying in the humidity here at the moment.
mm-hmm. Well, I can listen. Even if your cat does make noise, I can give you 100% assurance my dog will suddenly bark at nothing.
Oh, okay.
So don't feel bad about that at all.
Okay.
So thank you for everybody for tuning in and for being on the call with us today. We're going to have an absolutely incredible show for you all tonight. But first, we're going to take part in my favorite part of the show called Who Are You and What Are You Doing Here? So why don't we start off with Mary? Tell us, who are you and what are you doing here?
Okay, well, I am a founder of a clean beauty brand called Kaia Naturals. So we make beauty products and personal care. So I make charcoal deodorant, natural deodorant, cleansing wipes, anything you would take to the gym or the yoga studio, and dry shampoo. And I started this business 9 years ago. And I was formerly within the beauty industry with Shoppers Drug Mart. I was a product developer there. And prior to that, I worked at Yves Saint Laurent and Elizabeth Arden, some of the more traditional beauty companies. And wanted to start my own one day. And here I am.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I love when people they very much have like a goal in mind and then they just do it one day. And you're like, oh, look at that. Okay, so Andreas, tell us, who are you and what are you doing here?
Hi everyone, thank you, Zach. I kind of feel like I'm in the Jimmy Fallon show right now, so I'm really
Honestly, that's been my goal since day one.
So I'm just really excited for it because, you know, Jimmy Fallon's doing a whole at-home thing and we're all doing that at-home thing too. So I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for that, Zach. I'm a business systems analyst. I'm still a 9-to-5er. But I do have a couple of side hustles. One of them is called My Turf, which is essentially a sporting space marketplace similar to Airbnb. So being able to book hockey arenas, soccer fields, tennis courts, all that. But today I'm here to represent Sessionz, which is a marketplace for learning experiences. So if I've ever wanted to take up lessons on how to host a Jimmy Fallon type of show, I could request a session from Zach and hopefully one day I'll learn from you. And yeah.
You know what? I love that idea. In fact, this is going to be like Scooby-Doo. I'm like, wait, number Martin. It's actually Jimmy Fallon, but it's not.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Okay, so Lisa, who are you and what are you doing here?
It's nice to be, Andreas, nice to meet you, and it's nice to be on with my friend Mary. I am also a founder of a clean skincare brand called Sahajan. Sahajan comes from the Hindi word for intuition, which is Sahaja. And so what I created was a clean beauty brand based on the ancient Indian science of Ayurveda, which is a holistic science from India. It's a sister practice for yoga. To me, it's the gateway to wellness and beauty. And I left a career in pharma to be able to create this clean beauty brand. So I took my pharma experience and really married it with this old world science.
Incredible. So you said that it's the word for intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is we're bringing together your intuition and your instinct.
No, there you go. Oh, this is why you're the marketer.
I was about to say, it's like I'm in marketing.
Mm.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the show. Before we do, I just want to say to everybody out there watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. There will be a Q&A. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you could share the video, it's super helpful. We want all eyes to see this because only you can prevent low view counts. Okay, so first thing we're going to jump off with is I want to hear the origin of your business. Tell us a little bit more about it and what inspired you to start it off. Lisa, why don't you start us this time?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So my business started, so as I mentioned, I worked in a career in pharma, and then I was a consultant, consulting back to pharma businesses. It feels so weird. I always look down because I feel like I'm not actually looking at people, but I have to remember that I am. But I came home, we're actually in my house. I came home one day and I was pregnant with my second child, and my daughter was at the top of the stairs, and while I wasn't home, she'd gotten into all my skincare products. So for any woman who's watching, you can imagine, like, it was a combination of, like, she's so cute, like, oh my gosh, that's probably $1 million on your face. But also I had this immediate sense of worry because I thought, what is all the skincare that I'm buying doing to her young little baby skin? And so it was in that moment that I kind of took her to a room and I said, look, if you want to play with things, these are the things you're going to play with. They were things my parents had given me. They contained ingredients, you know, my parents would have used on me, their parents would have used on them. And so it was in that moment that I thought, okay, if my skincare isn't good enough for me or good enough for her, it certainly isn't good enough for me. And also, if I really believed in these ingredients, I needed to go back to them. And so it was really, as we talked about the word intuitive and intuition, it was really a journey back to what I believed to be intuitively right. And what I found in my discovery was what I thought was family tradition. My parents are from the south of India, was really steeped in this science, and it's the science of Ayurveda. And, you know, people ask me what Ayurveda is. It can be so big and so small, but basically it's, you know, it comes from the general belief that you need to be in balance. And when you're not in balance, you get sick. And so you would see Ayurvedic doctors to proactively work on your health system. And for beauty and for wellness, for anybody who's listening and watching, if you've ever had a turmeric latte and you did it because you thought it was going to be good for inflammation, that beautiful recipe comes from Ayurveda. And it offers us the same recipes for the skin. So for example, we use turmeric in our brightening mask because that helps with inflammation on the skin, which shows up as redness, which shows up as dryness, all of those types of things. So for me, this was born out of, you know, an immediate instinct to go clean, but also an immediate instinct to go back to what I believe to be intuitively true. And as I mentioned, I wanted to put my science on it. So, you know, I believe, and I know Mary, we both believe that you can get the same results from a clean beauty product that you can from any conventional product. And I wanted to show that to people. So our bestsellers have clinical results on them because to definitively show that these gorgeous plant-based ingredients from the Indian subcontinent can deliver on anything else.
Sounds like family is very important to you when you were developing this product on this brand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was a bit of a journey back. It partially, you know, obviously it came from my family, but it was a journey back. Like the first samples that we made, my parents grew up on, like they're from rural southern India, and so they would have grown up kind of in farming communities. So the first samples were from coconut oil from my parents, the farm that's still in the family.
Okay, wonderful, great to hear it. Okay, so Andreas, tell us a little bit how you started your business and what inspired you to get to where you are now.
Sure. I can't really begin to explain my startup story without really telling a little bit about myself. Because it plays a part in everything that I'm doing. I grew up in Sydney, Australia. I'm originally from South America, but my family moved to Sydney, and I was always around people that were doing all sorts of things like sports, instruments. Everybody was up to something awesome. The culture is beautiful, similar to Canada, only just as consistently great weather as it is these days in Canada. And as a kid, I always took private lessons, whether it was with friends, alone, about all sorts of things. But I guess the aha moment was observing people and how they do things, how they connect online as I got older. I started seeing these trends, but maybe it was subliminally getting inside my brain. And I started realizing how people connect and learn it from each other. And I realized that knowledge is all around us, right? There's multiple ways of gaining knowledge, you know, from school, from universities, from colleges, instructional. Now it's online videos. I used to learn from a lot of things from YouTube. You know, I'm not gonna lie, but I learned a few recipes on YouTube during this COVID situation, and you know, I just loved like learning new things. And you know, we're all education providers. It's just a matter of how we turn that. But really, even the most iconic musicians, artists, scientists, you name it, they all got inspired by someone else. You know, Jimi Hendrix learned how to play guitar from his neighbor, right? His neighbor taught him. If you think Michael Jackson came up for, invented the moonwalk, there's a little bit of a twist there. His name's actually Jeffrey Daniel that showed him how to dance the moonwalk. And that was when Michael Jackson actually saw him on TV on Soul Train, and then he was super impressed.
Wait, you're saying Michael Jackson didn't come out of the womb moonwalking?
He probably did, but he was kind of like
world shattered.
So as you can see, all these things really inspire me. People inspire me. I think, how we connect with each other and how we learn inspire me. How the education system needs a little bit of a helping hand inspires me. So I really think there's a lot of potential in education, and that's why Sessionz was born, to kind of help humanity achieve more things in a faster amount of time.
So it sounds like a connection, connecting people with experts in the field to help them get better was really the driving force behind that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. So Mary, tell us all about what inspired you to start this business.
Well, I think, as I had mentioned earlier, I had been in the cosmetic industry. It's always something that I was passionate about. And so I'd spent many, many years. And while I was working as a product developer for Shoppers Drug Mart, actually, I used to travel a lot. And sometimes I would be using facial cleansing wipes, which was my very first product. But I often found that I was getting eye irritations from them. And of course, Shoppers was one of the biggest retailers of wet wipes, and they're so convenient, but yet they were so full of not great ingredients. And so I looked at this category and I thought, I knew that one day I would leave and start on my own. It was always my dream to have my own company. And this is where I really saw an opportunity. It was when I went in it and I looked at all the products that were out there. And this is well before the wellness movement in beauty started happening. I went, that is one category that is seriously needs some cleaning up, both from the formula as well as from the cloth, because the cloths weren't very sustainable, quite wasteful, but yet everybody loves them because they use them when they're, in a pinch or when they're travel. So that was my aha moment. And I decided then that I would use a fabric, which was bamboo, that you can literally plant it and it disappears in 60 days, the cloth itself, and also to make the formula itself 100% natural. And it would be the cleanest wet wipe that ever existed. And so I literally was the first person to really come out with, or company to come out with an all natural cleansing wipe. It turned out to be a lot more difficult than I thought, because I had a very difficult time engaging multinational wet wipe manufacturers to want to produce something as unusual as this, because the cloth itself didn't exist. So I had to go to many, many manufacturers before I would find one that didn't think I was a lunatic, and that would actually work for me. And the interesting thing was, it was another woman that gave me a shot at this. It was a woman-owned company, which was the only one in all of North America that makes wet wipes, because wet wipes are generally made by huge manufacturers. And they're typically used to dealing with Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson and Neutrogena. So when some little independent comes to them, they're not very motivated to want to work with you. But for some reason, I was able to find this one manufacturer, and I don't know if it was because she was a woman and I was a woman, but I think she believed in what I was doing, and she agreed to work with me on this unusual project because it had never been done before. And that was my very first product. So I made a bamboo facial cleansing wipe, and they literally biodegrade. We call them wipes without waste because they biodegrade so quickly, and they're compostable. So you can put them in your garden and they disappear. And because the liquid itself is also natural. It won't contaminate the soil. So it was definitely before its time. And then after that, other products followed, like the charcoal deodorant and charcoal dry shampoo without aerosol gases. I try to be very innovative because that is, my background was in innovation. So each product that we come out with, despite our size, we try to have really innovative products. We don't have a lot, but the ones that we do have, we put a lot of time and care into developing them. So they certainly have, we know that we even have Oprah as a big fan of our cleansing cloths. We have a lot of celebrity clientele that use those cleansing cloths. So they developed quite a cult following. So we hope that continues to grow.
Has Oprah done a thing where she gives out the cleansing cloths to everyone in the audience? You get cleansing cloths and you get cleansing cloths.
That's hard to negotiate, Zach.
I mean, you did just say your background's in innovation, which can we just point out, like,
not public relations.
Can we just point out something that, like, my background's innovative. I was paid to be innovative, and people spend the whole like, God, how do I innovate once?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so now I want to talk about something we talk about a lot on the show, brand, and creating a brand and branding and all that great good stuff. So I want to get to learn from you guys, sort of what your brand is, how you establish the brand. For all those out there, the way we perceive brand is sort of the key adjectives you use to describe your product or your key values, the way you want the product to be perceived. Mary, let's start with you again. So talk to us about brand, your brand.
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, is that, innovative is one, but we stay really focused. And I'm a big believer in staying in your lane. And I don't want to have, people keep asking me, are you going to be launching skincare soon? Are you going to be launching? And I'm a very big believer right now, is that consumers want to buy brands that are specialized. So I have kind of conceived my brand is, something that, small line of products, but just the essentials. So deodorant, though, is a real focus for us because it is the vast majority of our sales are in our deodorants. And so we really want to double down on that category and be a real expert in that area, as opposed to having a skincare line and color line or hair care line. I really don't want to have, I want to have it very focused and primarily in the deodorant category. And from what I've seen from consumers, that's what they want. They want highly specialized products now. And so that's the way I want to build my brand anyway, is just to stay in my lane and really focus on maybe different kinds of deodorants, but really become an expert in that category.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you really value the importance of niching down.
Yes, I do. I believe that the consumer is, today's consumer really values and wants that, is niching down. It's not for everyone, but that's what I believe is going to make our brand really move to the next level.
No, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, in my opinion, it is also really important to niche down, because you don't want to try and be too diverse and try and please everybody. Like, be really good at X amount of things, and then, be great at that, and you can't really go wrong. Anyway, so Lisa, talk to us about your brand.
Yeah. So it was very clear to me when I started, and I'm in skincare, which is a huge portfolio of products. I mean, I remember when I first conceived of the idea, I was almost nervous to tell people, family, friends, because I thought they would think I was, much like Mary, that they would think I was insane, because you can walk into a Shoppers, the Bay, Sephora, there's no shortage of skincare brands. But to that point, I knew very early on that what I believed in, and is specifically focusing on Ayurveda, was where we wanted to stand. And so that became incredibly important. And so everything we did was about relating to the authenticity of Ayurveda. So I worked with 2 Ayurvedic doctors in India on the formulations, because I wanted to make sure I was being authentic to it. Even going through the branding process, I did work with a small branding agency here in Toronto on it, but we weaved it in from everything from the naming process. I remember sitting there and we wrote all the words that came to my mind about the brand. And as a little aside, it's very hard to trademark a word. But then then we said, okay, here are all the words that we stand for. And then I went and started translating some of them. And so it was about really, I think the key of really creating a brand that people can't necessarily, that people can look to and believe in, but also that somebody else can't come in and just say, oh, I'm going to do that too, is really deciding what it is that you stand for, what it is that you believe in, and then weaving that into every single thing that you do. So, down from, I was like playing with my hands before this. So this is like our body oil, but
My favorite.
but like we specifically picked amber bottles that would look very authentic, the writing of the brand name, everything that we did, so that when somebody picked it up, if they didn't have an interaction with me, that they could really see what we stood for, and that if they interacted with it online or they interacted with it at a store, that everything could feel cohesive. And so, for me, a brand is, as you describe, is that those words, those adjectives, but it's also almost like it's like a living person. And so we had to decide that living person was existing in all these different places. What would she look like, feel like, smell like, everything like, and then really look to try and it's hard as a small business to do that, but how do we really make people feel that in their hearts as they're interacting with the product.
It sounds like authenticity was something that was really important to you when working out the brand.
Yes, most definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to work out a brand, and people want to be authentic, but then think, oh, do I need to do this to make more sales? Do I need to do that? But at the end of the day, at least I found if you're more authentic and genuine with people, you ultimately will do better, because people, they don't feel like they're being sold to; they just feel like they're being spoken to. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Andreas, tell us about your brand.
Yeah, sure. The brand Sessionz really didn't come into play months and months after working on the idea. I figured that, to echo what Lisa said, it is like a human being. And, the parents that are naming their child a certain name and then they change it later on. Well, I didn't want to go through that process. And the more I started working on the idea and evolving it and producing the requirements for it, the more and more things just came to me. And I'm all about energies as well. Not to say that I'm a skeptic or anything like that, but I just let the universe talk to me. And I kept seeing this word jump at me, but I never realized how important that was to me. And the word was session. And I'm like, okay, well, everything's a session. This is a session. Massages are sessions. Public speaking events are sessions. Like all these things that we talk about in daily life are really small appointments, which they just keep calling sessions, and they just kept jump at me. And we got the name, and that was like a very important thing, which ranked to our team. The other was really just, what do we represent? Like Lisa said, like what are our core values? Trust, compassion, passion, inclusion. All these things really formed the identity, the DNA of Sessionz. I'm also a heavy believer that if you involve artists and marketers along for the ride, you end up strengthening your brand as well. So I'm not a branding expert, but I have an eye for brand or marketing. And when you involve people that are better than you, you start to strengthen everything. And I reached out to my branding expert, who's all the way in Italy. And he's always sought by the biggest brands in the world, like Louis Vuitton and like all these other brands in Europe. And I felt like I needed to just leverage my team to build out that brand. So really the evolution came from not rushing into it, understanding what you're going to get into, and evolving it bit by bit. And for the entrepreneurs that are just getting started out, or they're about to start a business, don't rush into it is my advice, and just let it speak to you. And over time, you'll realize something pretty special in your name and your brand. So that's how I got started.
Sounds like it was a very collaborative effort in order to establish it.
Yeah, it was.
I definitely think I totally agree with you that there's a certain things you find people who are just, even want to say some people who are better at certain things. Like I know for me, like, in terms of graphic design, I can see what I want to do in my head, and I can do like a rudimentary version of it in Photoshop. But I just know at the end of the day, Let the designer do it. This is a note for everybody out there. Let the graphic designer do it. They're better than you. Don't think you can do graphic design unless you are trained in it. Oh, man. Okay, so moving on from that, I want to talk to you about demographics. So I just want to know, share with everybody, what your target demographics are and how you establish that. Andreas, why don't you start us off with that?
Yeah, demographics. Let me see. Originally, it was young adults. They were between the ages of 21 to 28. The people that were trying to improve in their careers, take up some new lesson to improve their girlfriend, boyfriends, or bosses. And that was the core market. And it wasn't up until a partnership meeting with a major skateboarding company that really opened us to targeting a different demographic. That particular skateboarding company told us, you know what, parents actually book skateboarding sessions for their kids. And these kids learn from the instructors that they have there. And all of a sudden, oh my goodness, like this feedback was so tremendous and so valuable that, that opened up the market. So it was no longer 21 to 28 year olds. It was also parents that had a couple of kids with a little bit of disposable income to invest in their child's education. So there's two ends to Sessionz: the people that have the growth mindset, and then there's also.
Andreas, you there? Can everyone else hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. No, Andreas, I can hear you. I just can't see you moving. You're frozen.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, but
I'm doing a really good pose.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The heavens are ascending on you, descending.
Oh now.
Oh dear.
Now
Well, what a great opportunity for Mary to talk about her target demographic.
Okay.
Seamless transition.
Well, I think with ours, it was initially we thought it would skew a little bit younger, but what we've discovered, and most of it is because of our price point, is that it does skew late 20s, mid 30s. I would say is the vast majority. But there is also, like, it does. I wouldn't say that there's a primary and a secondary demographic. Clean beauty attracts an interesting crowd too. So I think it tends to be a bit ageless, to be honest. But the retailers that we sell with and our online business, just knowing that having a pretty good handle on who our customer is, it does tend to be anywhere between late 20s and mid 30s. Okay,
so, but you're saying when you started out, you had an idea of one, and then sort of over time, it sort of developed into its own. Interesting.
Yeah, I think I think you sometimes want that ideal customer avatar, and sometimes it just doesn't work out to be that's really who's buying it. And the interesting thing is that we have a lot more men buying our product than so it's not just females. I mean, it still skews predominantly female, but we've discovered that a lot of men buy our products as well. So we've got about 20%, which I'm very shocked to find out, and that we know through our online store, that we do have a pretty significant male consumer too.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, if I'm being completely candid, I don't even know how dry shampoo works.
I don't think that's what they're buying. I think it's a deodorant.
I mean, I don't know. Could be anything. We're open-minded here. Andreas, are you back with us?
I'm back, but do you still see my video?
I don't see your video at all. I see a square of darkness.
Okay, I'm going to just continue and switch to my plan B for video. So just keep going.
Okay, jolly good. Totally part of the show. We planned this. Lisa, talk to us about your demographic.
Sure. I like to consider, so it's interesting, when I started, and I would think about this a lot, I often thought it as more of a psychographic than a demographic, because even though clean beauty has become this sort of incredible revolution, it's still, we've only seen it come into like stores like Sephora in the last year as an example. So I really saw my psychographic as this woman who like believes in clean, wants to put like, who puts like good food in her, you know, eats good food, eats well, or is aspiring to, like, as there is an aspirational kind of person who like believes in wellness, wants to practice yoga, meditates. We sort of had this idea of this is who she would be. And I would say to a certain extent, we talked to her, but again, it has surprised me because partially because we do have the clinical backing on some of our products. Like some of them definitely skew much older than I would have expected. And so like on our Nourish face cream, which is our best seller, I think, you know, probably the youngest person who used that is 30, but, you know, goes all the way up to like even in their 60s because it's like super hydrating and all of those types of things. And it's really good if you've got like dry, red, sensitive skin, which so many Canadians have. So I've been surprised by that, but also what I've learned is as we've added new products, it's also kind of changed the way it's allowed more customers in. So, you know, our Nourish face cream, because again, it's deep and it's rich and it's luxurious, tends toward a bit of a more tenured consumer. But our cleanser, for example, because it's a cleansing oil and it takes off makeup like nobody's business, people tend to be younger who purchase that, or they tend to have taken the customer base younger. So I think, you know, the learning is that I think as you add on new things, I'm sure the typical Zoom customer, for example, was a different customer than it is now because necessity is the mother of invention.
Yep.
And so I think there's definitely, I think the thing that we've learned is that as we add in new things, we can appeal to new customers. And also, you know, I met Mary, I'm going to use Mary as an example, but I met Mary very early on in my brand's evolution, and she was already on this path. And clean beauty is like, it's the fastest growing segment in beauty, but it's still coming. And so, you know, if you talk to us in 4 years, hopefully we'll both be like, yeah. Well, actually, hopefully we're like that now, but hopefully we'll
maybe
be,
not right now.
but you know, I think that the customer base will only continue to expand. So it won't just be for, you know, the clean consumer. I think that eventually everybody will be the clean consumer.
Okay. So my thought, so you say it's good for sensitive skin. Does that refer to when your skin is easily offended?
Yeah. Yes. And that sort of sensitive skin, exactly. So
it gives you a bit more, it gives you a bit of a thicker skin.
There you go.
Zach, you need
Very well done.
You know, once upon a time, somebody said to me, you know, you make dad jokes. I said, no, I don't. I just make the same jokes my dad makes. Okay, so now we're about halfway through the show. Andreas is back with us, and we're going to take this opportunity to reintroduce everybody to everybody who's just jumped on in case you didn't start out with us, which is fine. We just can't hang out anymore. So Lisa, why don't you reintroduce yourself first?
Okay, and do you want like the full intro or just? Yeah,
full intro, what you're doing, who you are and what you're doing here.
Okay, so my name is Lisa Mattam. I am the founder of Sahajan. Sahajan is a clean, clinically proven skincare brand based on the ancient science of Ayurveda. And I know I feel like I've already told the story again, so I feel like should I tell you?
But you don't need to do the whole. You don't need to do the back. Yeah, that was perfect.
Is that if you want great skin, you want to feel fresh, Mary and I got you covered.
Nice. Well, and on that note, hey Mary.
Hair, because if you're in COVID times and you're not washing your hair, you need Mary.
There you go. And so I also, like Lisa, make a clean skincare line. So I make, I wouldn't call it skincare, body care, I guess. I make all the products that you need when you go to the gym or you go to the yoga studio. So I have deodorant, wipes, and dry shampoo, just the essentials. But all of them are made with clean, wholesome ingredients, and our cleansing wipes are sustainable, biodegradable, and compostable. And the rest of our products are all made with a charcoal base.
Okay, excellent. And Andreas, let's reintroduce you and tell us who you are and what you're doing here.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. Sorry, I apologize for the technical issues there.
No worries.
My name is Andreas Pareja, and I'm an IT business systems consultant by trade, but I'm also the founder of an education technology app called Sessionz, which basically allows you to request sessions for in-person learning experiences. So if I wanted to learn how to be an awesome host like Zach, I can request a session from Zach, and Zach will be able to approve or reject. And if he approves, we connect, and Zach gets to make a little bit of money from me by him teaching me how to be an awesome host. So Sessionz allows anyone to learn anything from anyone that knows something to help out on their learning experience and personal development.
So moral of the story, if you want to make money doing the thing you're really good at, download this app. Okay, so the next bit we're going to talk about is sort of one of the bigger elephants in the room in the current climate. I'm going to talk about COVID, the COVID situation. It's affected lots of businesses in lots of different ways. And so we want to hear from you guys, sort of how it's affected you. What have you been doing to combat the situation, and sort of what your plans are when or if the world goes back to normal. Mary, why don't you start us off?
Well, like everyone, I adjusted to working from a home office. And I actually found it remarkably easy. And, it took us a few weeks with my small team to get into the groove, but we have. I mean, we had to learn some best practices just on how to adjust and feel connected. Because I think in the first weeks of COVID, all of us were, taken by surprise. I mean, we had very little notice that our offices were going to be closed. So I learned a few things just on how to manage my staff, first of all, and how to stay connected and how to work and be productive. That was one. And one of them was by touching base every morning at 9:15, we all do a call. And I find by having that first morning call, it kind of centers you around the day, so that people are up and they're dressed and they're presentable at 9:15, and that we have issues that we have to talk about. So I feel like that really centered the team. And then after that, we found different ways of working together. And I'm focusing more on that because that was step one during COVID. And so what we found was video was great in the morning, or if we needed one-on-one meetings. After that, we moved to more of a chat system, and it wasn't Slack. We actually adapted WhatsApp, and we really like WhatsApp calls or WhatsApp texting each other for urgent matters. And that's how so we formed groups and then singles on WhatsApp. And so we communicate almost all day on WhatsApp. And it's just the morning call, and it's working really well. We've been able to tackle some really big projects and even launch a product by using all of that. So that's how I've adjusted my team. In terms of, obviously everybody had to take a look at their business. You had to look at, how I'm going to forecast for the rest of the year. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, who would have expected what's happening right now in the US? I mean, that's kind of forced more closures. So nobody really knows what's going to happen in Q3 and Q4. So I have very low expectations for 2020. And I've actually pulled back on a launch because I only launched one product, which was kind of a relaunch anyway, and decided to reposition that one and hold off on the other products that I was going to launch, because I think it's going to be a while before things return to normal. So for us, we're shoring up our online business like crazy, and that's really what we're focused on right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's really meant for me, was just adjusting.
Yeah, the hot word right now is pivot. Out of interest, was there a reason you went with WhatsApp versus Slack? Because to me, WhatsApp is more like the thing you use just to chat with people, whereas Slack is like the business one. They fundamentally do the same thing. So what was it about WhatsApp that attracted you versus Slack?
Well, when we left the office, to be the absolute truth, is we were all in a bit of a panic because we said, well, how are we going to talk to each other tomorrow? And everyone, Slack, we weren't on board with Slack. So everybody just downloaded, or if they didn't already have it, and most of us did, already had WhatsApp. And it was just a quick decision as we were walking out the office. Well, let's just talk to each other. And it just became habit. So then we had a discussion whether we were going to use Slack or if we were going to use, what was the other one that we downloaded and tried? in any event, we found that two of the girls had come from agencies and they used Slack at agencies. And they said that they found that people just used it more instead of email. It wasn't really, because we wanted something that was also a project planning tool. And they felt that Slack wasn't really that great as a project. They didn't use it. They used it just as a chat mechanism. Yeah. So we just felt, well, we already are all on WhatsApp. We already had it on our phones. We're a super small team. Why bother with Slack? This is working just fine and it's free. And so that's why we did that.
It's funny you mentioned how everybody has it already, or mostly, because I was in America once doing a presentation, and it was an old agency that I was at, and I was like the only one from Canada, everyone else was American. And they were talking like, oh, we've got all our teams of brand ambassadors. We've each got like 75 each. I'm like, just put them all in a WhatsApp group. And they're like, what's WhatsApp? And I'm like, what do you mean? What's WhatsApp? And then the one woman who was there, she was from South America originally. She said, you are dealing with a room of Americans. None of them have friends in other countries.
Yeah. You know what? That is actually true, because I have, some meetings overseas and we always use WhatsApp, and we have family that's in Paris and we always talk to them on WhatsApp. And we, in my office, I also have a lot of Asian girls and they always talk to their family in Asia on WhatsApp. So it is very much an international tool. It is very much not an American.
And it was such a funny thing because I never even thought about it. It's true. Like I talked to my cousins in London, one of my friends in South Africa. And it just like became, because I feel like they call Canada like the mosaic versus America's the melting pot, that there's just so many people know so many more people all around the world. So you need it more. But anyway, this is not a huge ad for WhatsApp. WhatsApp, please sponsor me.
Yeah.
Okay, Andreas, talk to us about your COVID situation.
Yeah, the premise of Sessionz is in-person sessions. So obviously with no bueno. So that was detrimental. It gave us a huge blow in terms of activity with booking requests coming through the app. Our hosts panicked a bit. They're sending us a lot of questions about what do we do. But in the lead up to that, we sent out a mass communication saying that we are developing enhancements to the platform to allow hosts to be able to entertain their clients virtually through a call, through a phone call, video call, phone call. And COVID just really gave us a little bit of a blow. And even though the whole virtual sessions was part of our roadmap, when you're building a tech startup, you are dealing with an MVP. And when you have an MVP, you have to go and approach the market in a little bit different way. And the entire landscape of learning online was all about videos and, taking programs online and online courses, on your own time, pausing videos. But we felt that was a little bit disconnect to learning. And then COVID came, and all of a sudden, physical distancing was not allowed. So it was, we just took a little bit of a blow on that. But we didn't panic. We kept informing people what we're working on, gave people a little bit of a workaround idea as to, launching Zoom sessions and allowing people to still request through the app, but only the deviation was that it had to be taken online. And really how we combated COVID was really sticking to our core values. Even though the technology was no longer relevant for the time, it still didn't prevent us from researching and development enhancements and staying true to what we're facing together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, Lisa, so talk to us about your COVID situation.
Sure. So, I mean, it's true, and maybe I should have been paying more attention to the news, but I didn't see the shutdown coming when it did. And even when it started, in the first days of it, it was kind of like, well, this is going to be for a short period of time and we'll be able to rebound and we'll figure out how this is going to go. And now it's the new normal. So I think a few things happened as a small business, but as a growing business, it was really hard to see some things that we had planned, or, some growth that some growth that's happening all of a sudden start to feel like it was stagnating. And I think there was a high degree of uncertainty, even on the part of consumers, like what's this going to look like? Am I going to have the finances to be able to invest in these things? What is the future going to look like? And so I think a few things sort of, everyone, much like any other business owner, I had to look and see where could I lean out. The interesting thing is when you're in beauty and personal care, it's considered an essential service. It's considered an essential item, and our warehouse was then considered an essential service. And so luckily I work with a third-party warehouse. And so, when we were starting to hear news of what was closing and what wasn't, once we were deemed essential, at least we knew we could continue to ship and we could continue to provide product. And I think a couple of interesting things came out of that. One is I think it's really important through anything, and I think we've seen it with COVID-19, we've seen it in these like profoundly painful events of last week, is that you really have to sort of, as a brand, it forces us to listen to see what's happening around us and make sure that we're being conscientious of the tone. So in the first, or at least that's how I felt, I'm a highly sort of feeling person. And even in the first couple of weeks of COVID, I thought, oh my God, I really want to make sure people keep buying, but I don't want to say, I know you're frightened and you're worried about the virus and you're worried about your family, but don't worry, buy some cream. So I think you really have to be careful of the tone in any of these situations. And so that was a big learning for us. The second part that was really interesting is that as people are home, they have more opportunity to, or we had to start thinking about, we started seeing, for example, we have a hair oil, which isn't our number one SKU by any means. And I started to see an uptick in it. And I think the reason was because people were home, they had time to hair mask, they had time to do new things. And so it gave us an opportunity to talk about some products we weren't necessarily talking about with, observing how people were living now. And I think the third part of it, and I feel really strongly about this with COVID, is I think it would, pivot is such a good word, and people are changing the way that they do business. But one of the things that I thought about really early on is if there's something that we're going to change, I have to ask myself why. And if we weren't going to do this before, why was it so important now? And, for example, I'm trying to do a lot more on social, and I'm being more available on social, but that's something actually I always thought I should be doing. I wrote that down on my list in November and then again in January, but I just didn't. And part of it was an apprehension, I think, on my personal part to be on Instagram and stuff all the time. And so, yes, I'm doing that differently, and COVID definitely pushed me there, but I should have probably been doing that before. And so I think for anybody who's saying to themselves, oh my God, I have to change my business dramatically, I would ask the question, why? And, is it because, you have a service that can no longer be available, and so we need to shift the way we're doing it? Or is it because, hey, you know what, that's probably a really friggin' good idea. And even if the lights were turned on, I would still do it. Because I think the one risk to all of us as business owners is just to chase new ideas because we need newness and somebody's taken something from, something's changed.
Exactly. And listen, the reality is whether or not you should have done it before, if you're doing it now, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny you mentioned, people that were doing hair masks, which I totally know what that is. But the point of the story is, you're right. I mean, we had someone on a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about the lipstick effect and how, in times like these, beauty products and stuff go up because a lot of women are at home who want to buy these things, to help you feel good and feel better about the whole situation. Also, this is a great opportunity now that we're talking about hair. My sister was very offended that last time I didn't talk about the fact that she gave me a really good haircut. So Sasha, this is your shout out. Okay. So that was all fantastic stuff. So now we are going to do the Q&A session. I'm going to take some comments that I've got here. If anybody has any other questions that they want to throw out there, just let me know who it's for. Just another reminder, if you want to share the video out, really do appreciate it. Every share helps because only you can prevent low view counts. Thanks to David. Thank you to Marta. Thank you to Julian. And thank you to Kaia Naturals for doing it.
How do you do it?
So on the Facebook link that I sent you, just click the share button.
Okay.
I'll send you a graphic afterwards. Super easy. Okay, so first question is for Andreas. We want to know, David wants to know specifically, how do you verify that the instructors are qualified to teach a certain skill?
So we hop on a call, and when they sign up, they provide their LinkedIn, a little bit of background as to what they do and who they are. We hop on a quick call and get a sense of who that person is. We make sure that they're validated by looking into some other certifications if they needed to. But certain session categories don't require any sort of validation. When you're an awesome guitarist and you may have not went to school for it and you may have been self-taught. So what's preventing this person from teaching another person how to play guitar if they know how to do it? I brought up the whole Jimi Hendrix example of one of Jimi Hendrix's neighbors teaching him how to play guitar. So there's going to be certain session types that require us to do more diligence than others. But we look at their online presence and see what sort of reputation that they have before giving the thumbs up and approving it and getting their sessions published on the app.
I feel like I just hope there's not like one guy out there who's always just one lesson ahead of the person he's teaching. Okay, Mary, we have a question. Apparently on your Instagram, hairline pimples was a topic that was brought up, and it was requested that we talk a bit about that because people should know it's a thing.
Yeah, it is a thing, and we actually have a team discussion before we put it. It was on Instagram, but we also did a blog post that does talk about those pimples from sebum. A lot of people don't realize that your scalp is just like the skin on your face. You should be exfoliating your scalp. You should be, a lot of people have overused dry shampoo. So despite the fact that we make a dry shampoo, we also talk to people about not overusing it. Because it's one of the worst things that you can do, because it does clog hair follicles. So it doesn't allow the follicle to breathe. So I think what people forget is that because your hair is covering your head, that for some reason that it's not part of, like, it's not skin under there, and it is skin, and it does get oily. So you get pimples from oil. And so oil will sit along the hairline, and it's actually a super common problem. So we gave some solutions on how to work with that, but we also talked to people about the frequency of, and not just washing your hair, it's also when your hair starts getting oily, or if you aren't using, some women don't want to wash their hair every day because it's actually not great for your hair to wash it every day. But for instance, me, because I have bangs, if I have oily hair, it will leave oil deposits on my forehead. Therefore, yes, I will get pimples from the oil from my hair. There's all different kinds of reasons for it, and I highly encourage them. We've done a whole blog series on that topic, and we're doing another one on scalp this week, because it seems like consumers are this is really common. Like, people have pimples, scalp that actually really hurts. Dandruff obviously is a problem, but it's complex actually. But as I said, people forget that there's skin under your hair, so you have to take care of it. And I think people don't realize that it needs exfoliating, and it needs special care in order to avoid those pimples, because it comes from clogged pores in your hair follicle.
I just learned more about the skin on my head
in
that bracket of time than I have in my whole 29 years on this planet.
It's a thing.
You know what? I love learning things like that, because one day I'm going to be either watching or on Jeopardy, and I'm going to be like, what is hairline follicle acne? I'm like, how did you know that? A funny story. Okay, Lisa, this one's for you. So what is your ultimate mission for your company?
Oh, what's my ultimate mission?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really hard question. And it's funny because in coronavirus, I've been going for lots of long walks, and I've had lots of time to think about that. I think ultimately my mission is to create a wellness brand. that supports women along the journey of their wellness. I think, the one thing I think beauty has not done very well is it's constantly like, you look tired, you look like you're getting older, you look, you just look like you need help. Whereas, one of the beautiful things I read recently, I've been spending more time actually in Ayurveda, is that Ayurveda believes that you should nurture your beauty because it's like nurturing a temple, right? It's like you've been given this beautiful temple that houses everything that you have, and it's about nurturing that. And so, my mission is to create this incredible brand that supports women along that journey. And whether it's like nurturing their skin, nurturing their hair, maybe one day, who knows, where the brand will expand, but it's really to have people feel like they're, nurturing them along the path where I can support them to be their best selves.
You reminded me of something that I think I mentioned this once before, where there was a stand-up comedian. She said, "Don't tell me I look tired. That's the rudest thing you can say to me. Like, just tell me I look bad. Be straight up." Or somebody said this, and this is real life. Somebody said to me recently, I got this haircut, and she's like, "I like it. I think I like it better the old way, though." Like, what do I do with that information? Okay, time is flying. We have time for one more question from the chat. It is for Andreas. How does a person, this is from Lisbeth Guerrera. How does a person that works full time are you able to accomplish so much? What are your strategies and how you plan out your goals?
Wow, great question. I actually get that asked a lot. A lot of people ask me that, like, what do you do? So the way I answer them is basically there's 7 days a week, 24 hours in a day. That's 168 hours. Then you deduct how much time you sleep. So 7 hours average, or take, times that by 7, you got 49 hours. So deduct that. What else happens in a week? I work 40 hours a week, so deduct that. I spend about an hour, maybe 2 hours on maybe exercising and doing all that. And then you factor in how much time you kind of dedicate to eating and doing all that. Plus I add in like 10 hours of recreational activities a week, whether it's self-care, seeing your family and all that. So when you do the math, you got 34 hours of free time, right? 34 hours to do whatever dream you have to pursue that. We talked about WhatsApp versus Slack. So WhatsApp is very much about communication, voice, text, sharing images and stuff. But I tend to use Slack as my project management task creation tool. We can create sort of channels that talk about different topics, and you can invite different people to doing different things. So, I'm a strong believer in utilizing your time, utilizing tools to make you efficient, to make you productive. And all of a sudden you have so much done when you just know how to wiggle and utilize all those tools. And that's what I've been doing these past few years, is just trying to make the best out of the time in the tools that are available to you, because you can do it. So the goals that I would set for the week is all about making sure that you deduct everything that you need to do, and also set goals that are timely and that you can accomplish, and make sure that you practice visualization as well. Visualizing the outcome for something that you want to do is very, very important. And the more you do that, the more special things will come back to you.
I love that. One thing I'm actually going to add to that for me, that really helps in that category, is once you've allocated that amount of time, when you make your lists of it, take everything you need to do, make 3 lists: what's important, what's urgent, and what's both. Do both, do urgent, do important. That has been one of the most helpful things for me. And I've got my to-do list, just all these things that just get scratched. Yeah, there you go. Has anyone else ever had a to-do list and then you're scratching things off, and then you did something but you didn't write it down, so you write it down just to scratch it off?
Yeah,
Absolutely. All the time.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying. Okay, so now we have entered the last little segment called 30 Seconds. It's my favorite part of the game, the favorite part of the show, and I say that about every segment. It's a quick fire game. It's very similar to Taboo. We're going to do one practice round, and then we're going to have 3 rounds. I have my counter at the ready. Basically, it's very much like Taboo, where I'm going to describe a something, and then you guys have to try and chime in chime in the quickest to guess it. So it could be anything, a person, a place, a thing, a country, whatever. And you have to get as many as you can in 30 seconds. So I'm going to set my timer here. Does everybody more or less understand?
Not really, but okay.
It's going to be great. Sorry?
We can do a practice one.
Yeah, this is the practice round. Have you ever played Taboo, Lisa?
I feel like I have, but I don't remember.
Okay, I'm sure you'll do it. I'm sure you'll be great. Ready? Here it comes. 3, 2, 1. Okay, not Smarties, but the other one.
Eminem.
Yes. He was Zorro. He was Puss in Boots in Shrek. Yes. The movie with the guy with the thing on his face. And yes. Okay. Na 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 na. How I wonder what you are. Yes. He was married to Katy Perry, the guy with the really strange hair. He's English.
Oh, Russell Brand.
Correct. Okay, that's time, and that's how the game works.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let me just check the counter is ready. Okay, the counter is type. Okay, she is ready. We are going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so where Barcelona is, the country.
Spain.
Correct. Okay, the guy who wrote Macbeth, he wrote Midsummer Night's Dream. Yes. Okay. The most popular Nintendo guy, but the name of the game.
Super Mario.
Yes. Okay. The place where you go skiing. It's a neutral country.
Switzerland.
But what are the places ski? The
Alps.
specific.
Alps.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And it's a company. They make chocolate. That's time. There was Nestle. Okay. So that seems pretty straightforward. Lisa, I like how you're like, oh, I'm not sure I know how this game's work. M&M's.
I actually thought
she plays it every weekend with her kids.
Trying to hustle
and now
us.
we're going. I was like, didn't we just play? I thought the M&Ms was the only practice. That's why I was like, I'm ready.
Okay, so.
And I eat them all the time too. I should have got that.
I do. I'm a Smarties eater. I can't do M&Ms.
Okay, so round 1. Mary got 1, Lisa got 2, and Andreas got 1.
Lisa won.
They're just that round. There's two more rounds. There's still redemption. Okay, next round coming at you. 3, 2, 1. The country where Rio de Janeiro is.
Brazil.
Correct. She has short blonde hair. She has a talk show. Yes. Okay. That book that discusses how males and females don't connect because they're from different planets.
Oh, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or whatever.
Correct. Where Santa lives.
The North Pole.
South Pole.
No, correct. North Pole. She was in Sweet Home Alabama. She's blonde, actress.
Reese Witherspoon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh my God, it shows you I'm spending too much time on popular culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Revlon was one of the ones.
Mary would have had that.
I'm so sorry. I couldn't get there.
Darn. I could have won that.
It's okay. It's okay. The points are coming through. Wow. Lisa got 4 that round.
Oh, wow.
Mary got 1 and Andreas got none. But it doesn't matter because round 3, all points are doubled. Thus making the first 2 rounds completely irrelevant.
Gosh, okay.
Okay, well, points-wise. Fun is the relevance. All right, are you ready? Here comes 3, 2, 1. The orange cat who loves lasagna and hates Mondays.
Garfield.
Correct. She's Chloe. She's Chloe's sister.
Kardashian.
What's her first name?
Courtney.
No. Like the main one.
Kim.
Yes. Okay. Like the best tennis player in the world right now.
Serena Williams.
Male or female?
Male. Best male tennis player.
I have no
Rafael Nadal.
No, the other one. The most Grand Slams.
Oh, Federer?
Roger Federer.
Yes, Roger Federer. Okay, so that was, you know what? That was solid. Definitely, I think round 2 was the most successful, but the points are coming through. This is so tense, everybody, so tense.
Zach,
The crowd is on the edge of their seats. And the points are in. Mary got 1, which counts for 2. Lisa got 1, which counts for 2. And Lisa, by a bloody landslide, is the winner. I don't know how this game works. You've been planning this for months.
I'm really good. I've been practicing all day.
Okay, guys. So thank you. That's the show. Everybody, just want to say thank you for having us. Everybody, thank you for watching. Again, please do share it out. Tune in on Thursday. We are going to be doing an extra show this week, where we're going to be having 4. Instead of unusual 3, we're going to have 4 Black entrepreneurs to support the Black Lives Matter movement. So that's going to be a great episode. Please do tune in. We'd love to have you. And we want to say thank you to all our guests, Mary, Lisa, and Andreas. Before you go, just want to say on your goodbyes, let's give out one piece of entrepreneurial advice for the would-be entrepreneurs out there. Let's start with Andreas.
I would enroll myself in Founder Institute. If you're a tech startup, go into Founder Institute. They'll kick your butt. They'll shape you into form. You'll get your idea validated in 4 months so that you don't have to spin your wheels and try and do it all yourself. They'll have the ecosystem ready to help you out. So my advice is for an entrepreneur that's starting out is validate your idea, get the help that you need, form yourself, educate yourself, and to get the peer support from programs like the Founder Institute.
Awesome. Lisa, parting remarks for the would-be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, mine in some ways is similar, because what I was going to say is shore up the right team around you to support you. And, often when you're starting a business, particularly, it's just you and you feel like it's you and you have to tackle everything, but it won't work that way, because entrepreneurship is very isolating. And so you need people who are just going to be supporters, like, you can do this, but you're also going to need people who can advise you and who can say, this is where you need to go for this, or who can tell you, whether, sometimes you might want to do it structurally and find a lawyer and an accountant and a beauty person and all of those things so that they support you. But it's really about getting some of that critical knowledge so that you can actually soar, because in and of itself, you can't do it by yourself.
Excellent. Love it. And Mary, final parting entrepreneurial words.
Perseverance is a really big one. There's so many times people will tell you that they feel like quitting, or that, things, you fail at certain things, and not necessarily the business itself, but there's going to be lots of little fails. And one of the things is that you have to not pay attention to those little voices in your head. You have to persevere. Sometimes failure is a really good thing. You need grit, lots of it, and you have to grow a tough skin. So sometimes you can't pay attention to those little voices in your head. You have to push through and look at the positive things. So I really talk about lots of perseverance. Just keep getting back up. No matter how often you get knocked down, get back up and keep going.
In the immortal words of my 89-year-old grandfather, who is still a practicing lawyer, if at first you don't succeed, swear profusely and keep going.
You got it. That's exactly it.
So thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm Zach Lignitsky. This is Instinct Marketing Presents Business Casual, and we will see you guys Thursday. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Yeah.